Magic is found in every room, where people connect over a shared purpose. In this weekly podcast, Luke, Hannah and Chris explore the role of purpose, courage, mindset and culture in every leader's quest for transformational performance.
Hello and welcome to Magic in the Room. I am Luke Freeman.
I'm Hannah Broderud.
And I'm Chris Province, and I'm also excited now. Okay, let's do that again.
No way. We got to keep that. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's super
Let's
engaging,
roll with it.
right?
Well, why was it funny?
It was very excited.
All right. So why am I excited? I'm excited to keep our conversation going around what should I do now, right? Everyone's kind of been operating in this season, let's say, and man, like the challenges just keep coming. It just seems like one after the other. We live in a world of ransomware and other cyber breaches and short staffing and market conditions that may or may not be falsely inflated, supply chain issues, the list goes on and on. What a call for courageous leaders, right? And
what an opportunity for courageous leaders.
And this is the times that leaders ask for. Right? Yeah. We learn nothing from winning. We learn everything from being challenged and kind of finding our way. So,
well, I mean, and we've said this on other episodes, but we've gone from your defining leadership moment might come once in a decade. Like, guess what? Now you get it once a quarter.
Right.
Like, what a great opportunity.
Let me ask this question first. This is a surprise to you guys. We didn't cover this. But as a leader, what are some of the things that we might see in this crazy ass world that would say we're on the right track? We're doing the right things. Our mind's in the right place. Our eyes are looking the right direction. What are those moments of discovery where it's like, yeah, what we're doing here is got us going the right way?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to overcomplicate it. I think it's loyalty growth, and that's our team members and whoever we're serving, our customers. And the organization should be healthy and sustainable financially as well. So some sort of performance and growing loyalty. Where I want to caveat that is, there are some pretty damaging things in history where there was a lot of loyalty and there was high performance and lots of good outcomes.
Right.
Good for the leader, right?
Right.
So, I think also, are we doing no harm, and are we considering wide enough groups of stakeholders? But let's say those things off the table, it's loyalty and performance.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had a version of that going through my head, which is, when people are rallying and they're putting their best energy towards the work and we're seeing meaningful results because people have an experience of doing meaningful work. I think that's a huge indicator. And I had the same caveat of, there's some moral implications too of recognizing, are we making a positive impact in the world? And are we doing no harm? I think those are also, benchmarks for leaders to take into account.
Yeah. So if I can take that down to grassroots level, like what am I looking at? What am I looking for as a leader for those discovery type moments? It's evidence of performance that I can recognize, right? And just training ourselves to call those out. Like, how is someone showing an engaged behavior? How do I know that they have the best interest of this team and this organization in mind? And when we see it, are we doing something about it? Are we saying, thank you for being you, for bringing your full self to work? Thank you for caring about the team. Thank you for making our business more sustainable. Like, are we making those moments impactful? Because I think we're getting those moments from a lot of team members and a lot of organizations right now. And to kind of re-ramp, the important part is putting a stamp on those moments and taking those from, hey, that was pretty cool, to making that moment have an impact on the balance of the team, right? And so moving from there, and we're going to talk more about investing in leaders, but I want to know, like, how does a leader think? Like, what does it mean to think like a leader? So before we get into the development of creating or cultivating leadership, I'm really interested in your guys' take on, when Greg was on, we talked about, well, a leader is a person that does certain things, right? Or engages in life a certain way. But what does it mean, put through the filters of both of your belief systems, what does it mean to think like a leader?
Well, what my mind flashes to is the book, Act Like a Leader, Think Like a Leader. We've talked about it on the podcast a long time ago, but it's this whole premise of when you start acting like a leader, you begin to think like a leader. So what is it? You can't think your way into leadership, so it does have to start with action, right? And what are the leadership behaviors? And we've talked about those too, of the leadership challenge, right? To model the way, leading by example, to look out for the best interest of the people that you are charged with leading. It is to look out for the best interest of the organization and its outcomes. It is to putting others' needs and the organization's needs to some extent before your own, but not in a way that makes you ineffective as a leader, right? So taking care of yourself in a way that you are the best version of yourself so that you can take care of the people and the goals of the organization and the things that you're a steward of as a leader. So those are some initial thoughts. Luke?
Yeah, taking personal responsibility for everything you see. Like, no excuses.
Yeah.
Everything in my ecosystem, I have personal responsibility for. Like, that's how a leader thinks. And then has that internal locus of control. Like, I choose how I respond to things. I choose to take responsibility for every single thing in this ecosystem that I'm in this business, in my role. And I'm going to choose what I'm going to do with this responsibility. And sure, there's some prioritization in there and whatever else. But yeah, feeling responsible.
And I think that starts with ourselves. Leading ourselves well means we take responsibility for ourselves, for our own development, for our emotional maturity and our emotional intelligence, for the subject matter that we're part of learning and educating and becoming a thought leader within our space. And then, taking responsibility for people and outcomes.
Yeah, and kind of to wrap that up, personal responsibility is the primary factor on every scale. Personal responsibility is the primary factor on every scale. And I think we'll get more into that. But I mean, when we talk about leadership development, isn't that what it's about? To somehow inspire a different level of personal responsibility and kind of cultivate some mindset, share some beliefs. But, when I think about what's it mean to think like a leader, it is mindset. Like, what is the foundation on which my purpose and my role and all that is formed? And it's also this idea, taking that idea of personal responsibility one step further. It's the idea that I raise my hand as soon as I decide to be a leader. I say, I am responsible for stewarding the well-being of other people. For those that I'm connected with and those that I care about, I am going to be a champion for them. And I don't get to go inward. I don't get to ring the bell. I don't get to leave them out to sea. It is now I am a person of obligation. And I think that's where it's a fun conversation around personal responsibility and that sense of obligation from the leader. Who am I obligated to? What roles have I chose? Which organizations have I selected to support and provide sustainability to? But I raise my hand. I don't get to unraise my hand. And that's where this whole idea of when I'm a leader, I'm with that team doing the things, having these shared experiences, slugging through the muck, suffering together, sharing tears, sharing wins, celebrating. Walking away from that team to ring the bell because it sucks or because I'm suffering ceases to become an option, regardless of how fatigued I am. And when it comes to leadership development, and I'll kind of kick us off, what is leadership development? For me, it's about developing the fitness to not fatigue out, the fitness to know when I'm being hurted, the fitness to seek the truth. That, leadership development is about being fit to get through the times like we are facing today, and not just survive them, but carry a team and steward the well-being of hundreds, if not thousands of other people through this period. So that's my take on development. What do you understand leadership development to be?
Well, first I want to just add a note to this idea of once I raise my hand to be a leader, tapping out and flaming out because it's hard becomes a really bad option. And I want to give some why and how you can navigate that as a leader if
Awesome.
You're feeling those feelings. As a leader, you should view your own well-being as part of the wider system that you're leading.
Right.
So it's not that, oh my gosh, I'm up here on this pedestal and I can't hack it anymore because being up here is way too much pressure and it's too hard and I have to work harder than everyone else. It's saying, no, I'm going to pull myself out of my body a little bit and rise up 50 feet above this room with 50 or 100 or 1,000 people in it. And I'm just one of those people down there in that crowd. And man, I look at that person and I have some compassion on that person. And I say, okay, I have the ability and the influence to change this system. So that person, that's myself, that I'm looking at with compassion, and everyone else has to win here. So what do I need to do to make that person win as the leader of that group and everyone else? Mm-hmm. And so we're not up on the pedestal, just I'm
right.
dealing with all my own, mess, wherever, in my home life, and having to work harder than everyone else and all this, and no one else can understand. And I don't know what to do about it other than quit. Right? No, I'm managing that and what I'm experiencing as I'm managing what everyone else is experiencing. And that might mean I have to say, to lead this team well, I'm going to have a real weekend. Or I'm going to have to make sure I have a vacation this year, because I haven't had one the last 2 years. Whatever it is. Right? We have to wisely choose and manage that, but as part of the system that we have leadership over, not as a different thing than how we manage everyone else. So I think that's just a tool to give people if they're feeling like, man, that ringing that bell is looking really tempting because I can't hack this anymore. Well, let's think about it differently.
Right.
Okay, so what was your question?
What is leadership development? Right.
Yeah, so I think we often think about it as competency development or skill development. And yes, that's part of it. But we've already said, that it's just as much character development and mindset development as it is competency development. So we need both things. If we think about upskilling people so that they can take on more challenge, we have to upskill or develop their mindset so that they believe they can develop. They believe that they're called to leadership and should be bettering the lives of the people around them, moving people towards a shared purpose. So that there's a belief, that mindset belief element. And we can't just change that and be like, all right, oh yes, I'm, I think about the altar call,
Right.
Yeah, I'm called to go be a missionary overseas. Okay, great. Well, if you just go start doing that, you're going to be an utter failure, right? So there's an upskilling of competency that's also required there. So, okay, someone thinks they want to be a leader. They're developing mindset. Yeah, okay, well, there's a lot of coaching, a lot of mentoring, maybe some technical upskilling. There's some things that they also need to learn along the way. So I think a healthy leadership development approach really takes both of those things into consideration. I will say I've come to believe that if I'm a leader developing leaders, most of what I need to do is mindset coaching, because people can solve their own technical skill with the right coaching and the right resourcing. So if I say, Chris, you think you want to be a leader, you've stepped into this new leadership role, you've gotten this project that's a stretch assignment for you. What do you think you're going to, what do you not have now that you think you're going to need to be successful on that? You know the areas, if you have the right mindset, the areas that you have gaps.
Right.
Let's help you identify those. And then great. How are we going to close those? I'm here with you. Let's figure it out. So I think that's a little bit simplification, but when I think about leadership development, that's my answer.
Yeah, for me, leadership development is a two-way street. There is a responsibility on the organization to put leadership development into play and actively work on leadership development, developing leaders, emerging leaders, building mindset, character, and competency and skill. And there is a personal responsibility, right, of doing, and we started with the discussion about personal responsibility. So if I want to become a leader, or if I want to become a better leader tomorrow than I am today, then I have some responsibility to engage in development type of activities. It means I have a responsibility to resource myself. So if I'm not feeling well, if I'm depressed, if I'm physically not fit, if I don't have the skills that I need, what can I do to take responsibility and get myself set up with the resources that I need to be the most effective? So that if that means I have to go to therapy, or I have to hire a coach, or I have to hit the gym or hire a personal trainer, or engage in any of the things that help me achieve a level of fitness, Chris, to use your description, being fit mentally, emotionally, physically, intellectually, right? That's a personal responsibility as well. It's not sitting around waiting for the organization to hand me the resources that I need.
Come on, make me fit. Come on, make me fit. I mean, that's sometimes the attitude, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think on the flip side, there's a lot of people who believe what Hannah just shared.
Sure.
Hey, how I got here, how I got to the role that I'm in is I developed myself. So don't tell me you need me to develop you.
Right.
Right. So I see that a lot, but what I don't see is people being clear enough about what they mean by that. So when we talk about a leadership mindset, we got a whole field guide on it, right? There's a whole program in how you develop mindset. So and I'm not saying everyone needs an entire program on leadership mindset. I'm just saying, if you're not clear to explain to people, here's what we think about leadership, you have a role to play. Here's our role to play. Here's your role to play. You have some personal responsibility. In fact, becoming a leader means that you're going to feel personal responsibility for every outcome you see around you. But we don't have the language to say that, and it comes across as well, I don't know what you're complaining about. Just go do it. Go figure it out.
Right.
I don't think that's the right answer either. So there is kind of this both and approach, because, if I'm a CEO, I can't just be it's all their problems to become leader, because I have to apply the same standard to myself. I have to take personal responsibility to say, I need a really strong leadership pipeline inside my organization. So what am I going to do about it?
Right. And I think that's the whole idea, is if the organization can set the table, it's up to the individual, and their personal responsibility to choose what to consume. And if they choose not to consume, they're probably not going to stay within that organization. Right. right? And that's where, like, my next question is, like, is it for everyone? Like, because we do this work, guys, like, we know who's in the workshops. Like, is it for everyone? Should every leader receive development?
Or is leadership for everyone?
Sure. Let's explore that for a moment.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, a lot of the expectation when it comes to development is you set the table and everyone's over for dinner. Some people just don't eat.
Okay, I'm going to start with my cynical realist self.
Yeah.
Because I have two competing beliefs here. And I don't know that they're mutually exclusive, but they feel like it sometimes. So the first thing that I know, realist-wise, is that in most organizations, in most leadership programs, in my experience, 10 to 15% of participants are actually going to be great leaders. They have the right mindset. They're hungry enough. They're curious enough. They're not too scared to question their assumptions. So that's pretty much true. And I think we can tell most organizations that we work with pretty accurately, like, hey, yes, let's do this with 50 people. Like, there's going to be 5, 6, 7 folks in that 50 most likely that will rise to the top. And our only job after we identify them is, like, how do we make their road as easy as possible? How do we resource them as much as possible? How do we make sure that you are moving them around, giving them projects? Because whatever you give to them, they're going to be successful at. And our whole job is, like, let them run, coach them, give them the right ditches, and they are going to be winners for your organization. That's true. Also, what I believe is the competing belief is that everyone has the potential for greatness inside them. And far be it from me to choose who is going to rise to their potential.
Right.
That's their choice.
Yep.
So I also firmly believe that the table is set for everyone.
Yep.
Now, practically, can you invite everyone to a intense, expensive, time-consuming leadership development journey only to find that a few of them are really fit at the end to lead? Practically, you might not be able to do that, but we're kind of getting into program design here. I think some level of leadership development should be available for everyone. And if they complete that and they want to move on to the next step, like, yes, they're invited. That's what I believe.
Sure.
I like that, Luke, how you shared those two beliefs, because you took my words out of my mouth, which is I do hold that belief that there is innate greatness in every human, and that at some level, however microscopic, everybody leads something in some context, in some role, even if it's just leading the herd with your anxiety and
Right. Steering the herd.
and steering
projecting.
the herd
Yeah.
because you're prone to, negative thoughts. I mean, that is a form of leadership.
Absolutely.
It is not the kind of leadership we want to necessarily encourage and foster. So recognizing that, yeah, I do believe there's potential to be a leader, and starting with leading ourselves, whether we're in a formal leadership role or not. And at the same time, yeah, I think we can use a sports analogy, right? We're talking about fitness. I think there is natural talent that's a factor when it comes to leadership as well. And let's just also, just to make sure we're explicit, our belief is that leaders are made, not born. Leadership is a skill that you can learn. However, natural talent does play a factor, right? So you can have an athlete who's naturally talented, who builds the skills and learns how to get really great at the game. They're going to outperform someone who works really hard but doesn't have the natural talent. Now, it can also be said that the person with a natural talent who doesn't work hard to build the skills is probably going to be outperformed by the really hard worker who puts the discipline in place and does the drills and learns the game. And so, yeah, you can have talent, you can have skill. If you marry them both together, those are where the exceptional performers come from.
Yeah. I think my numbers shake out pretty close to yours. You can you can tell that you're the pessimist and I'm the optimist because you're like 10 or 15%. I'm like 15 to 20, right? So
I just have higher standards.
Right.
We're just defining excellence differently.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Fair enough. No, for me, I think, let's just roughly say 20% of the people that engage in the activity or come to the table are going to be champions for the organization. They're going to be that world-class type of leader that can take us places. 40% of the people are going to be exposed to what exceptional things look like, and they're going to understand the language and some of the mechanics. And if at some point they find that personal responsibility or have a life event, like it's in their hip pocket and they become marginally better day to day. And then you have like some level of disengagement amongst most teams, unless that organization has done just an exceptional job with recruitment and they're already really clear about their standards. You're going to have some percentage of that team, could be upwards of 30%. That's like, why am I here? This is stupid, and then in the room, they're going to give you the thumbs up and then they're going to go talk shit to everybody about what they just went through. And so that's really something about program design and in that relationship with senior leadership to say, hey, these individuals that are disengaged, like they're not scheduling their coaching calls, they're blowing up what we're trying to do in the room. Like, do they get to come to the table next week? I mean, Luke, what's your take on that group that is really, they're invited to the table, but then they're talking politics the whole time. They're just making it uncomfortable. They're disrupting the learning process. Like, do they get invited or do they get disinvited?
I think everyone has the potential for greatness inside them. So I hesitate to just uninvite them. I also think that they are a foil for those leaders that are really on that authentic leadership journey. They need a black hat,
right,
to be a white hat against. I think against is maybe the wrong word, but there needs to be a contrast.
Right.
And so there is a role to play for the people slowing things down, throwing a wrench in the gears, all of those things. Now, if I'm an owner, a shareholder, and I need results, I'm going to be pretty ruthless once I hear about those people.
Right.
So I guess I'm saying, if all you care about is performance and you understand leadership, you probably want to move those people out as quick as possible. But most organizations, there's not that level of ruthlessness and not that level of clarity about what is a good leader and what isn't, and not the level of data that you need, like about their teams and what their teams are experiencing. So it's usually a little bit more opaque to understand. So I guess I'm the optimist in me is saying there's still some good that they produce just by causing challenges for those people on that upward leadership trajectory to engage with and work on. In a perfect world, would those challenges be external and not internal? Yes.
So what you're talking about is the role of resistance in any growth.
Yeah.
If we're going to grow, there has to be resistance on some level. On a physical level, how you gain muscle mass is you lift weights and you resist against something and it tears your muscles up. And then you have to give them time and nutrition and resources to repair, and they grow back stronger. And with from the cells in our bodies to the cells in an organization, some level of resistance is paramount for growth. And that's an uncomfortable truth.
So, a metaphor that's helpful for me is like our planet.
Mm-hmm.
Do I wish that the human race was smart enough and had enough foresight and was decisive enough that we would say, let's not get in a climate crisis and avoid it? Sure, I wish that. That would be awesome. Realistically, will there ever be advances in, next generation energy sourcing without some sort of crisis? Due in part to bad actors. Yeah, that's probably reality.
Sure.
Is that there needs to be some sort of challenge, difficulty for people to rise against and overcome.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a level of like human system reality at play here, that there's always going to be some sort of friction, as you said, Hannah, and struggle. And as a coach, my challenge is seeing those struggles as opportunity for the people who really want to develop as leaders.
Yeah, and I'm gonna take a couple things away here. It's a pretty common conversation for us. Like, yes, we have these actors at the table, the black hats, if you will. It's a common conversation of, hey, everything's going well now. Looking at sustainability of the organization, we know this person gots to go. It's just a matter of when. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times those leaders have already written the end of their story with that organization. We're just waiting to see what are the chapters between now and that last day. And in that time, they do provide value. In their for there to be light, there has to be dark. Otherwise, there's no context.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we have to have different perspectives at that table, and I value them for that. But that day, they may not offer a lot of that day-to-day operational efficiency, and they may be creating harm within the organization. But I'm saying one value that they have is they provide that context to those leadership behaviors. But if they're acting that way in team 1, how are they acting towards team 2? And that's typically where you're going to find low pulse survey scores, low levels of engagement within the department, questions to ask like, does my leader have my well-being in mind? Right? My relationship with my supervisor is good, or I share a quality relationship with my supervisor. I'm proud to work here. Like when we ask those questions down channel in those departments, you're going to get that truth that may be required to action out that particular leader. But there's a lot of times when it's like, hey, we know that person's got to go. It's just a matter of when.
Well, I'll just say in those situations, the ball is in the court of the intentional positive leaders.
Right.
Because the fact that that person is still there means that we are not clear enough yet on what it means to be a leader in this organization.
Yeah.
We don't have the right language. We haven't really written down, and I mean literally written
Mm-hmm.
down, here are the behaviors of a leader in our organization, and then we haven't actually held ourselves up to those written down expectations yet. And that really is the level of granularity that I think is required for an organization to quickly and effectively move those people out. Or else you're just kind of stuck in like, well, I think this is effective leadership. Oh, well, I kind of think I just have a different style, right? Well, no, until we say your style maybe works somewhere else, but here, no, look, here's the 30 sentences that I have written down, and each of them is a description of a behavior that we expect here. Now, listen, like 10 of the 30, you kind of do the opposite. Until we get there, it is really hard, and it becomes political, and it becomes like, well, just how much pain can we stand? How many people have to leave from their team? And so I guess I'm pulling this back to personal responsibility to say, like, don't complain about that person still being at the table. if you haven't yet done the work to clarify why they're not a fit.
That's right. Everybody's in until they're out.
Yeah.
And until we write the rules, we don't know. You know, the other piece of this that I'm interested to get your take on, I know like moral injury is another episode that we're going to get into around all this, but it's this idea of people within organizations, maybe their directors, senior directors, VPs even, seeing development as unnecessary work. Like, I know these are the things that I have to do. Like, my job is to sell, and I am selling. Sitting in this workshop, spending time with my team and breaking bread with them and building these relationships does not help me sell. This is unnecessary work. Now, like, you're scratching at, like, why that looks like moral injury. And why that can show up is like, man, we're just burned out. Like, we need to get the hell out of this workshop. Right? Everybody's in there. They got other work to do. Like, we're tired of doing the lifting. So it's this idea of how do we tackle leadership development being viewed as by transactional employees, or how do we mitigate or manage this of development work being viewed as unnecessary by people doing the work?
Well, it's not even always by the people doing the work. It's also often by other leaders and by senior leaders who see it as a waste of time, or what people could be out there doing the work. Why do we pull them
doing
out?
Something?
Yeah. Why do we pull them out and spend time on this? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I got really triggered by a post or response I read on LinkedIn the other day. There's a leadership coach that I follow that had put just a poll out about how often do you meet with your team to, and this is a sales leadership coach, how often do you meet with your team? And someone responded, who's a VP of sales, who said, coaching is a waste of time, and if you have to train them, they're not worth their salt. Like, I hire thoroughbreds and let them go. That's how I am, and I hire people like me. And this coach kind of pushed back and challenged and said, well, but top athletes hire coaches. And this person literally just kept pushing back and saying, no, training is a waste of time. Coaching is a waste of time. Hire top performers and let them run. And I should not have to waste my time as a leader coaching or training. And it was really triggering to me, and I really wanted to respond, but I felt my energy just like draining by
like
even
going right into the screen,
Yeah.
right? Like this, warping into
and I'm like,
the
I
interwebs.
step away from the screen right now.
Yeah.
Like, this is not where I need to spend my energy.
I mean, I was triggered when you said LinkedIn poll. I mean, because I was like, sure, if I want to just manipulate people by squirting some dopamine and letting them click on a poll, I could do that post every day. But like, come on, is that really what we're all going to choose to do? Apologies to everyone that's done a LinkedIn poll so that you can boost your algorithm score. Maybe it's required for your success. So
Haven't we talked about gamification, Luke?
We have talked about gamification. I just
I
struggle with it.
Well, it's super teams typically don't work. I could see, as long as that person's team didn't actually have to work as a team, there's a world where that could function. Mm-hmm. If every person is working individually, there is a world where that could be true. But in organizations where teams have to perform, like, that team has to forge, and there are certain experiences that team has to have in order to perform. And I want to talk about this particular piece, and that is the value of language. How do you create common language that leads to tacit coordination if you do not execute development activities? Said another way, like, how does development facilitate language, and what role does language play in productivity inside of teams and organizations?
I mean, maybe this is too simple an answer, but I mean, the clearer our vision is, the more likely that people are going to make it there. Unless we think we're going to handhold everyone every step of the way and get them to some vision that we have and haven't told them. But that seems really ineffective to me. I'd much rather take responsibility for doing the work on really clarifying, here's where we're going. Here are some mile markers on how we get there. Like, all right, let's run. And if you don't want to go there, that's fine. Like, that's even more clarity. Like, look, if you don't want to go there, it's okay. Like, we'll find someone who does want to go there.
Yeah, no, it's a good conversation. You know, I'm my mind is going to, you know, what are some things, you know, our question is, what should I do now, right? And our focus is on investing in leaders. So how do we do that, right? What are some tactical things that we can do to apply into leadership development?
You mean we should deliver on our promise for this series to be, what should I do now in this really hard time when I don't really have time to do a lot of things?
Yeah. Yeah.
And instead we're at like 47 minutes of ethereal, isn't being a leader great? And it's hard and it's amazing. And yes, I hear you. And I think we should talk about those things. So practically, some takeaways. What can you do right now? What should you do right now? We've hit on this in this whole conversation, but don't give up. Talking about leadership, being intentional about leadership is important. It's the future of your organization. Identify leaders early. Have the leadership conversation early. Everyone who enters has the potential for greatness. How do you invite them from day one to be a future leader of your organization? How do you keep the table open and create a vision for invitation into leadership?
Yeah. And with that, treat everyone as a leader. Individual contributors are leaders. We're all leaders of ourselves. Mm-hmm. Back to our early discussion about personal responsibility. We're leaders within our subject matter, right? And and this is how we instill growth mindset into our organization, is by treating everyone like a leader that has personal responsibility to lead at whatever capacity and whatever level they find themselves. And when we start instilling that language, we help to shift the mindset and help people begin to see themselves as leaders.
Yeah. And, you know, the thing that I'm seeing working, there's two tactics right now that I'm seeing as being very productive out there in the market. And that is, one, promoting people that are aligned, like your champions for your organization and the teams within it. Promote them, get them doing as much as possible, get them modeling the way. Do not be so concerned with age, experience, education, all of that. Like, if they are effective, continue to promote and support them.
Yeah.
Right. Well, a lot of times when we say, well, we promoted this person past their capacity. Well, did they have the right development? Did they have the right support? That's typically where things break down. Mm-hmm. Like, we can promote people past their capacity if they're not able to develop. But the idea is to promote, develop, and support people that are champions for your organization. That's one of the most productive things that I'm seeing right now, because a lot of organizations are having to throw that old belief to the side. There's just not enough people, right? So a lot of younger leaders are getting promoted. I'm seeing that as very effective. Mm-hmm. Also the use of, there's so much information processing in these organizations, the creation of like junior executive teams, or almost like
shadow boards,
yeah. Right? Where they're kind of this combination of a planning and working team, because the executives can't possibly process all the variables and inputs we're going through right now. So giving those emerging leaders and the future of your organization the opportunity to plan the work, propose the work, and then once approved, go do the work.
Yeah, and that's back to this whole notion of, we learn leadership by doing leadership things. We learn how to think like a leader by acting like a leader. So giving people that opportunity, right, to do the leadership things, and thereby develop the leadership skills and mindsets.
Yeah. And if you need help with that, I mean, that's something that we do for a couple different clients right now, where they might say, well, we don't have the right executive leader to coach a bunch of emerging leaders. But we buy into this idea that, yeah, we need a junior executive team that is tasked with some of the thorniest challenges that we face and look to the future and solve those problems and come bring us the solutions. But we don't have someone to coach them. Well, great. That's what we show up and facilitate. They know everything they need to know, right? What they need is facilitation and coaching and leadership development by solving problems. Exactly what you're saying, Hannah. And I'd say the thing that you should do right now to help get yourself to those solutions is get rid of limiting beliefs about tenure that's required, resume experience that's required. I mean, this is my opinion, right? So just me reading the tea leaves. The importance of a 4-year education 20 years from now is going to be much less than it is right now. Like I believe that traditional education is facing a business model crisis, and that at some point parents will revolt and be like, no, I'm not paying for that anymore. This is crazy. So like, why be on the lag end? Like, why not do an actual statistically valid talent assessment right now to look at people's potential, leadership potential? Because like, guess what? We can do that. It is kind of correlated with statistically valid measures of personality and character. Why would you not care more about that than whatever degree someone has or however many years they've spent in a role? So like, lean into that, tear down some of those limiting beliefs that you have about who can be a leader. And then, you know, the people you get to choose from is a lot different and better and more diverse group of folks that now you can say, yes, here's a stretch assignment. Here's this shadow board. Here's this project team. Let's get you in there. Hey, here's 5 direct reports. Like, jump in there, see what you guys can do, make some messes. We're going to be coaching you and supporting you along the way.
Yeah. And I want to make sure we don't confuse what you just said, 4-year education, with the need for education in general, right? Education and skill development is critically important, I believe, but that can look like a lot of different things. And I agree. The outlook for the future is that, yes, education still matters, and education can come in a lot of different forms and are much more accessible to people who want to take the personal responsibility to learn what they need to learn. It's out there. We can go and find the information, and when given the opportunity to act on it, I think there's more opportunity than ever for leadership development. And then you've already mentioned coaching, but coaching is critical. And we do believe that, regardless of what others may say, like reflection is a key to development. And so providing that opportunity to have those reflective conversations where you sit down with someone who asks you the questions that helps you think and maybe shift your perspective, or be able to pull resources and ideas that are already inside your mind, but you haven't been able to articulate them yet. That's the role of a good coach.
And, the other thing that I would say is we're going through a time where we're processing a lot of variables, and we're stewarding the well-being of those around us. I think now's an opportune time to rethink that emotional labor component. And rather than like, hey, this is getting tough, like call HR. Call HR about the emotional stuff. I'm only here to make sure we get the transactional work done. Like, what a great time to have leaders of departments and leaders of teams to start working through those conversations with their employees. Like, the call to action is to stop offloading the emotional work to our HR departments, because if there was ever a case for burnout, like, those folks are threadbare. Like, dealing with everything, low staffing, all the COVID impact, putting new policies in place. And, directors are going to HR and saying, hey, that direct report of mine, Luke Freeman, is he coming back? And HR's like, I don't know. Is he?
He's your employee.
But that's kind of like this whole COVID offload that's been put on that department. And now like they're threadbare. And I'm like, oh God, please don't leave. Please don't leave. Like, we need an HR department. Please don't leave. But how much can they take, right? We've got to start offloading some of that emotional work. So how do we do that? It's around leaders knowing who they are and developing that EQ. We did the whole series on it. We do a lot of training around that and development around that. But now more than ever, leaders have to understand how to meet other people where they are. And a lack of that understanding creates a risk for organizations that are trying to steward the well-being of their people. So, I think those are all really good actions that we can take. Let's just kind of talk about this whole idea in general. Like, what should I do now? I should invest in leaders and develop champions and leverage champions for this enterprise. As we have kind of rounded out this conversation today, what are your final thoughts and takeaways?
Yeah, final thoughts. I want to just give kind of an actionable plan for someone who's listening and they're like, yeah, no, I'm the person who feels like they're on the pedestal, not in a prideful way, but I'm up on this pedestal looking down and I'm responsible for so much and I'm so overwhelmed and this is incredibly difficult and I don't know how I'm supposed to do more. And you're saying, oh, well, develop leaders and do these, and that's all more, and that's really hard. And I would just say, if you can, just schedule 15 minutes. Schedule 15 minutes and actually close your eyes and visualize yourself down in a room with all of your direct reports and everything that you're responsible for, and look at your needs and the needs of that team and the needs of all the stakeholders that you serve. And I would challenge you with this as you visualize that. Looking down on yourself there, if you were an effective coach, if you were a world-class coach to the people on your team and the leaders on your team, couldn't they put the fires out more effectively than you putting all the fires out? So if I was going to do anything, I would encourage you that you can become an effective coach. It is a skill. It can be learned. There are technical ways to coach that you can actually read through, learn, go get in a coaching certification program, get someone to help you walk through that content. If you spent 15 minutes a day learning coaching for the next 3 months, I think that you would be outfitted to put out more fires as a team and be more successful as a team than you are today. So what should you do now? If I was going to winnow it down to one thing, look at yourself as a part of the system that you're managing. Upskill yourself if you're not already an effective coach, and your team will be more effective.
Awesome. Hannah?
Yeah. Final thoughts, just bringing it full circle. Investing in leaders is a two-way street. So let's do the things within our organizations to help people develop the mindset, the character, and the competencies and skills that they need to be effective leaders. And then as individuals, let's go out and do the same for ourselves.
Yeah. And I'm going to say, as a leader, if we want to limit our individual suffering, we have to do the work of developing others. Otherwise, we have to clear all the channels, Luke. We have to make all the decisions. We have to do all these things until other people are developed to do them. So the key for leaders to experience life differently and create meaning and well-being for those around them is to invest in the development of mindset and character for the people around them and the folks that will champion their enterprise and their organizations for years to come and ultimately make them sustainable and wildly successful. So great conversation. Love it. Hey, if this is the work we do every day. Like, we love developing leaders and helping organizations grow. You can find us online, purposeandperformancegroup.com, every social channel. Be sure to like our page on LinkedIn. Smash the like button on this podcast if you're giving it a listen. Write us a review if you like it, and if you don't like it, call me. So let's look forward to talking to everybody, and just something like, hey, if you just have general questions about what you're doing now and its effectiveness, like those are the types of questions we're here to answer. Just reach out. We're not hard to find. Thank you all for listening. Thank you guys for being here. Until next time, let's go win the day.
Make it a great day.
Magic in the Room is hosted by Chris Province, Hannah Bratteroo and Luke Freeman, and produced by Ben West. Theme music is by Evan Grimm. Title track Fake Love available on Apple Music, and this podcast was recorded at Storycatcher Studio with video and audio editing and production support by Brad O'Hara and Alicia Crum, with inspiration, strategy and technical support by yours truly, Neil Hughes. Magic in the Room is a production of Purpose and Performance Group. You can find us at purposeandperformancegroup.com, and remember, previous episodes are available at magicintheroom.com.